A universe where China has been fully colonized. And this is clearly taking place somewhere near World War II, or maybe just afterwards, since we have a Japanese-controlled Korea, as well as Manchukuo in this place. So Mongolia and this westernmost province is gonna go to the Soviets. That seems very likely. And all the French have to do is really just extend their former Indo-Chinese territory. They already had Vietnam and Laos, so they're just gonna take a little bit of a bigger chunk out of the southern part here. And Germany's gonna get a little dong. Now, I don't know exactly what Germany this is. This might be the no-no Germans, possibly, which is a scary thought. But then things get a little bit wild when the British just randomly take over everything else. I mean, I get they do have all of British Raj, and then they freed Tibet so they could have their own British Tibet, but this just seems a little bit crazy. I don't know who else they really could have put here, though. Maybe the US randomly get into territory, but I'm not sure if they would have really wanted to do that, if that would have made sense. I mean, they would have had the Philippines probably at this time, so perhaps you could have given them something over this way. There's also Portugal and Macau, so they might want to extend this a little bit. I'm just trying to think of like how you could make this look a little bit less unrealistic. I mean, could you imagine the naval capabilities the British would have to have in order to accomplish this? I know that they were pretty good, but those warships would have had to have been insane. But speaking of warships, this video is actually sponsored by World of Warships. Look at that! World of Warships is a free-to-play game and available for PC. You'll be thrown in a team-based sea battle that requires different strategies and tactics. You can also play along with your friends in a division. The game features over 400 historical ships that you can control in beautiful maps and unique living landscapes. The weather even changes in battle. You can also customize your own ships the way you like or the way it performs best. There are more than 44 million players and 5 different warship types: destroyers, battleships, cruisers, aircraft carriers, and submarines. Go download World of Warships by using that first link in the description down below. And if you use the promo code FIRE, you'll be able to enjoy a huge starter pack: 200 doubloons, the premium battleship USS Texas, 20 times Restless fire camouflage, 1 million credits, and 7 days of premium account. So check that link down below to start blowing some stuff up. Here's a universe where Canada rebelled from Great Britain instead of the 13 colonies. So as you can see, things have kind of swapped in North America, with the United States of Canada and the Dominion of America. This territory very clearly is still under control of the British Empire. I like how they did a little bit of Manifest Destiny though, just like Canada did, just not to the same extent as the Syrup people. After they got their independence, they really expanded west. They dipped down and stole Colorado away from America and got as west as Oregon and Washington. Love the inclusion of this Canadian flag. Looks like they've got a lot of French representation. Oh, I just now noticed that the British colonized Cuba. Maybe they stole that away from Spain in a war, or after they got beat back by the Canadians, they just felt like they had to get their confidence up somehow. Cuba was their rebound or something. And I love the inclusion of Texas. Would the British really care that much to take this stuff over? The British back in Europe probably had their sights set on Africa or far Asia at this point, and we have evidence that they did like to keep smaller countries around just to separate themselves from bigger powers. Afghanistan was basically this sort of buffer state to separate them from the USSR. So I wonder if Mexico would be too afraid to invade Texas themselves just in case they upset the British. And I doubt the Canadians would really want that territory too. Like, doesn't seem like a very fun area to squeeze through. The Canadians might want to attack Mexico though. Maybe they could get like a straight line across, taking Nevada and just like Northern California, keeping LA under Mexican control. Oh yeah, didn't even realize that Alaska is Canadian too. So the Russians sold this to Canada now, which makes a lot more sense. We don't have this crappy border guard that we have nowadays. Kind of odd that we just take this as a given that the US just have this random chunk of land out here that's not connected to anything else. I wonder, since the big power here is up in the north, does Canada really care that much about what's going on in South America? Would we see one of those countries strive like New Granada? New Granada has, I think, like Haiti and Puerto Rico. This is a fun map though. The ethno-linguist groups of the Austro-Hungarian Empire based off of a census from 2012. So because it still affects the region to this day, we can kind of imagine what an Austro-Hungarian empire that still existed would maybe look like. But it's kind of funny because just looking at a map like this really goes to show you why it wasn't able to just exist for very long. Just this random amalgamation of all these different languages and cultures. It's kind of crazy it even existed for as long as it did. We've got the Austro-Germans up here in the red, obviously next to Germany. Then all the Hungarians in the center. A little sprinkle of Czech over this way. Don't even get me started with the Baltics. We've got Croatian and Italian, Bosnian, Serbian. There's Romanians and Ukrainians and Polish. This is just all too much. Now, I would assume if this empire lasted longer than World War I, maybe it wouldn't be quite this divided. You know, it fell apart after that, and then like 100 years went by, and these places were all kind of divided. So this would have been 100 years later. I would assume it might not look this bad, but probably still pretty bad. A world without the Prophet Muhammad, or basically no Islam, and the year is 1863. Holy crap, and the borders look like this? I am disgusted. So there was no invasion into Europe, and I'm assuming there was probably just a lot more infighting, nothing like to unite these guys. Clearly this is also in some sort of Romance language, I guess because the Anglo-Saxons are pretty insignificant. There is no France, no Germany, no United Kingdom. The Swedes look kind of okay. I love how this is just called Island, which it actually isn't it in certain places. Wasn't it called Island for a second there? I'm sure there were people in Europe that just called it the island, which is a lot more ominous. If you add a "the" to an island name, like, it's gonna sound scary. Look at this terrifying Macedonia, the southern part of Italy, and grabbing Carthage. This is basically just Carthage. Italy is here, and then there's Croatia, who's a really thick boy. Bulgaria is also looking pretty good. I gotta give this map credit. It's a lot easier just to like unite all the lands under a couple empires. This thing is really divided and disgusting, but that weirdly makes it maybe more realistic. But speaking of terrible border gore, let's go to the most famous for the worst border gore of all time. But this time the Holy Roman Empire didn't form around Germany. This is a really thick one that I think probably started somewhere in France, and they expanded way beyond the original Holy Roman Empire, getting Norway and as far east as like formerly Ottoman territory, and even north of the Black Sea with the Kingdom of Crimea. How they got this powerful, I have no idea, but I do like the inclusions. I've seen this before where like France makes the Holy Roman Empire. Usually they just give them all of Italy. It's a lot more unique. They expanded to Greece too, and maybe all this power just off the coast of the English Channel could have made the British crumble. Now, does that mean we're gonna see a very scary, short German man rise to power? Not with a mustache, no mustache, and no former painting career. I'm talking about like a Napoleonic German. Also, I'm really curious what this would do to colonies from the New World. I mean, would it all basically be colonized by this new HRE? Maybe like old Spain and like, I don't know, Scotland would get there. Would the Holy Roman Empire even care about colonies either? These Mediterranean states probably wouldn't do much, but some of these ones on the outside might be too small to really invest the resources in going to the New World. Population is 60 million, and there's a ton of different languages in it, 70 billion GDP, and the emperor is Louis VII of France. Are these the elector states too? Okay, I kind of want this mod in EU4. The Dutch Empire at its greatest extent, just after WW2. Oh man, if only this was real. I would love to see an epic Netherlands like this. So of course, they start somewhere in the lowlands. Belgium probably doesn't exist. Is that Doggerland? Just throw in Doggerland randomly. Oh, good, good. They kept New Amsterdam, and they even extended their territory in the US. They took a nice bite out of Germany after WW2. This appears to be Brazil, but I'm not sure. New Holland. The Dutch did have something in Brazil, I thought for a second there. They also took a chunk out of South Africa, or they are South Africa. No one else is here. They got the tip out of southern India as well as Sri Lanka. It's all Suriname also over here in South America. Some African colonies, of course, and then they gotta go with their good old trusty Indonesia. This Indonesia looks slightly bigger with this new peninsula that they have established. This would be quite the fun world. I hope they keep their orange flag too. I'm just such a big fan of orange flags. Like, it's very disappointing they changed it to this red, because chances are, like, if you have orange in your flag, I'm probably gonna like your flag. There's just not enough orange out there. If the small city-state of Monaco became a slightly bigger city-state, basically Monaco, if it was like Singapore, it's like a really rich small area, I really don't know how a tiny place like this could ever reclaim land, unless they had some sort of alien technology that made them really good at war, but let's still kind of play with this idea. So in the green is land existing before the 1300s, and as you can see, every century that goes by, they extend a little bit further and further out. They keep reclaiming land. Is this like the Dutch, basically? They weren't reclaiming this through war, they were extending out and defeating the sea, something like that. Honestly, I don't really care, as long as you change your flag. There are too many red and white flags just divided by the middle. Please, just change your flag. Why not throw some orange in it? A map where these ancient empires have basically conquered the known world. With the Romans at their greatest extent, the Han Empire also at theirs, then we have a little bit of a divide in South Asia. The Kush people out here expanding though, and whatever the heck this is, like the old Mongolians. Crazy to think that, like, this could have definitely happened. Like, if all these places never really collapsed, civil wars weren't really a thing, these guys would have won the world over in chapter 1. Like, this would have made things a lot more simpler. It's already like 1984. This is like an ancient 1984. This is just like 1984. This is the Swiss thalassocracy. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds cool. Sometimes also called a maritime empire. It's a state with primarily maritime realms. So basically, if these weird mountain Alp people with their Yetis became Venice, kind of. The biggest thing is they had to extend down and defeat Monaco and Genoa, taking this stuff. Then from there, they decided to put all of their efforts into some sort of navy thing. It's just a weird combination, thinking like mountain people becoming maritime. But okay, they grabbed up Corsica, Sardinia, and then these Spanish islands that Spain controls. They even have Algiers, which is Swiss controlled, and Tunis, and then somehow they stole this away from the Ottomans. Yes, I'm sure that's gonna be okay. Oh, islands over this way. I like that this isn't super ridiculous. I mean, it kind of is, but you didn't give them like all these different spots in Europe. Maybe this is a little bit like overboard, but everything else, okay. Maybe just go with Tunis. Do they need Algiers? This needs to have some sort of alternative technology here that they found in the Alps that made them really good at sailing or something. Sea warfare. Did they have that Greek fire? Maybe they discovered the Greek fire where they just like light the top of the water surface on fire. I don't really know what I'm saying, but seems like something like this probably wouldn't last very long. There's no way they last more than like 100 or 200 years. But just to have them like this for a second there would be kind of cool. The post was titled The Most Unlikely Empire. A Fallout universe in the Northeast USA. The year is 2300 AD, and here are some of the major factions: the Commonwealth of Minutemen, Gunners, Nuka World Raiders, Capital Boys. Oh, wait, Capital. I would have liked Capital Boys better, but alright. The Pit Raiders. I like these. And the Free States. But those were just the major factions. Here are all the factions. It's a lot more different. We've got the Super Mutants, some random settlers, raiders. Talk about border gore here. Ooh, what are these? Mothman cultists. Now that's a cool little reference. As someone who grew up in California, I had no idea who Mothman was, but I'd imagine in like a post-apocalypse universe, there probably would be a lot of people worshiping Mothman. There's literally a Mothman statue. I mean, we're not even in the post-apocalypse, and there's people worshiping him already. That'd be a fun part of the video game. Like, you try to go over there, and these people like kidnap you, and they're preparing all night to sacrifice you to the Mothman. He comes down from the sky. In a very different universe, we have the USA, or the United States of Arabia. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Their entire existence is based off of destroying the empire of Buddha, which is somewhere in India for some reason. They really want to take that out. There's also this Christian kingdom of John land down here. How do they feel about that? Ooh, Cleopatra's Egypt. And here are the individual states of Arabia. We have Cuba. Good to see that's nicely under our control. Then there's Qatar, a weird sideways Utah. Cereal, what the hell? Virginia in East Virginia. Finally, East Virginia is a thing. Washingtonistan and Cornistan. That's basically Nebraska. Some of the regional issues include the Great Schism, runaway private Arabian mercenaries, Chinese fleet that's stuck in the Suez again, and the Carthaginian-Egyptian War. There's also a little Manhattan Project going on. I don't know what that's all about. Oh man, and just look at those beautiful flags. I almost didn't even realize that they're based off of like the Saudi flag, kind of. These are actually some pretty good flags. I don't know how like 9 of them were made and they all look pretty good. I like that the stripes are still somewhat included. The design of this gun looks really good. I can't even tell which one is my favorite. Maybe this American banner or very original. Finally, here's a redesigned map of the 50 US states, except it was made by a European. And Europeans normally don't like straight borders, at least if we're talking about Europe. They don't mind drawing straight borders in the Middle East or Africa. I'm already for this. I've always thought we should just probably unite New England. These states are way too small over there. They deserve an update. This person is not a very big fan of Louisiana, unfortunately. That's gonna make my Creole brothers not very happy. Also not a big fan of KFC, apparently. KFC Empire is gone. I guess KFC can live on just through their fast food chain. Do they really need a state? I'm pretty sure Kentucky Fried Chicken is more popular than the state worldwide. Not a big fan of some of these other places like the Dakotas and Nebraska. Kansas is gone as well. Big old thick Missouri. I mean, if you think about it, these states do deserve to be a bit bigger since there's less population. Might as well make it grande. And speaking of grande, there is something called the Rio Grande. Dang, you divided up Texas. Also, the Texans probably not gonna be happy about this. At least you don't like not exist. You know, you're still there. Texas Plateau, Texas Gulf. I always hear that Texans say there's 5 different parts of Texas. Well, how about 2 different parts of Texas? Does that work? You kept California, interestingly enough, and then you combined Cascadia, which this would be a pretty interesting place. Combining Washington and Oregon would make that place, I think, pretty strong. Yeah, keep the capital as Seattle. Nevada is mostly a giant desert. Surprised that Utah just didn't annex all of Nevada. Ooh, there is the old Columbia that's back. Okay, the most egregious thing though I've seen, I know that my Michiganders are not gonna like this, but how did you keep this? One of the biggest changes I always see made, especially from like non-Americans, is they give this Upper Peninsula to Wisconsin or somebody else. I don't know why Michigan has both peninsulas. Well, it's some sort of war, right, that happened? I don't know. Ooh, look at big old Washington, D.C. Pennsylvania's gone. It looks like they almost designed this around rivers, which is pretty smart, or just more like geography in general. We really did just draw straight lines across whatever we saw. There's some good and some bad. I don't know. Let's see what other people think. But like I said at the very beginning, if you want to blow things up, check out that link in the description down below for World of Warships. And if you use that promo code FIRE, once again, you get 200 doubloons. 1 million credits, a tier 5 battleship called the USS Texas, fire camouflage, and then 7 days of premium account, so maybe I'll see you out there. And big thanks to the October patrons, Majestic Unicorn, Papi Druwu, I Love Marks, Drew's Thick Breaks and Girlfriend, Drew's Argentinian Grandpa, AryanAfterHours, BringBackPolandball,
Alfonso M6,
Barnsky W,
Dalton D,
Full Send Nic,
Ivan Lima,
Jesse C,
LuxembourgLover,
Max Cooper,
McBlorf,
Mine Brothers 999X2, and Stormtrooper 501. Thank you.